What's up, fam? I'm Ryan Milton from TeamFFLEX. You're on my show we do every Wednesday for you called First Callouts, where we talk about everything for all you competitors out there that are trying to get yourself into that first callout. I'm going to give you some tips, some tricks, some strategies, and a lot of stuff that is going to help you actually do just that. Today, we're going to talk about judges' feedback and a couple different types of feedback and what it can actually mean for your training, future shows, and moving forward with your competition career. All right, do me a favor though, real quick, before we get to it, just subscribe to the channel and then share out the video. I'm Ryan Milton from TeamFFLEX. You are on First Callouts. If you compete in the Npc and the Ifbb in the sport of bodybuilding, we're talking about all divisions by the way, then feedback is the #1 thing that you need to get to make sure that you're going further and further in your actual competition career, okay? The Npc and the Ifbb for that matter have these amazing layers of competition. You know, we can start as true novice, go into novice, go into the open, go into nationals, get a pro card, go from pro card to pro shows, you know what I mean? You guys get what I'm saying. There's all these different layers, but what needs to happen all the time is that you're actually getting constant feedback from the judges, okay? Feedback is actually what's going to shape you as a competitor and actually how you're going to be able to get better, do better. Now, feedback from the judges is not like feedback from, you know, your friends, your other competitors, you know, even your coach. Feedback from the judges is to the point. It's going to be exactly what you need to know. And it's going to tell you how to cater your training. You know, your coach can better adjust things for you, what you actually need to bring to your next show to place higher, do better, or if you have future goals, you know, nationals, pro cards, whatever, what you need to do between X, Y, and Z to make that actually happen. So feedback is something that I strongly encourage you always get. If you can wait around to speak with the judges, you know, do it. If you can contact them some other way, you know, email, do it. Do whatever you can to actually get feedback from judges. Or if you have a coach like me or any of my coaches on TeamFFLEX, we actually do it for you, all right? Because when I'm out there strategizing, building plans and all that, I want to make sure I'm getting my athletes exactly where they need to be. I want to know what's going on so I can learn more, I can get better, and you know, I can continue to progress my athletes to their ultimate goals. But basically, there's going to be a few different types of feedback you're going to hear most common. And I want to give you some ideas about what that actually means regarding your training and all that from a coaching perspective and how that can actually help you get further faster and do more shows. So no matter what division you're doing, the judges, they are looking to make sure that you fit the criteria of that division. Now, this is usually a combination of these things, all right? It's going to be your muscularity, your shape, your symmetry, your size, your proportion, and if you fit the actual criteria of that division, then your conditioning. Your conditioning also, guess what, has to fit the criteria of the division, and conditioning means how much body fat, you know, percentage you have, how lean you are, in other words, versus other divisions. Every division is different, okay? And then you're looking at posing and presentation. If you can own the poses, you show the right angles, you pose like a pro or not, all right? So these three things, you know, your muscle, your conditioning, and your posing presentation are pretty much what wraps up all these divisions when the judges actually see you on stage. I know a lot of competitors, they get in their mind thinking, you know, it's all about the cardio, it's about the dieting, it's about the reps in the gym. The judges don't see any of that. What they do see is exactly what I just said. If you have the right muscle, you got got the right conditioning, you got the right posing, presentation, and the person that puts that together the best way is going to usually be the one that actually wins the class. Definitely going to get yourself into that first call out, all right? And so that's what it's all about. That's important to understand for what I'm about to tell you regarding feedback. Now, feedback is usually going to be one of these three things or all of these three things coupled together, okay? Depending on how you did at your show, depending on how far off you were, you might have more feedback regarding like things you need to improve versus someone who may be really close or just off a little bit. They might have very little feedback, okay? And I know as an athlete this can sometimes be frustrating when you get feedback and it's like, oh, you just need to do this just a little bit more, because you're like, well, how did I not place? How did I not win then? How was I not? Every show is different. Every judging panel is different. Every competitor that shows up, every lineup is different, okay? So what they're looking for, what's going on, what they can see, you guys wouldn't even know this stuff being a competitor. I've been a coach now for years and years, and I sit, right behind where the judges sit, trying to see what they're seeing. You learn from all the judges, and I'm still not at the ability that I can sit there and judge a show and tell you exactly what they're seeing, but they're qualified, they know what they're doing. So feedback, as much as you need, as little as you need, it's gonna be exactly what you need, in other words, to actually improve. So what's the first type of feedback, okay? First type of feedback a lot of times where we could talk about is the muscularity. So sometimes you will get feedback as a competitor that comes back and says, hey, you know what? Your muscle base is off. You actually are out of balance. You're not upper to lower balanced right. You need to build more quads. You need to build more glutes. You need to build, so on and so forth. And again, we're talking about all divisions. Criteria is going to be different, but muscularity is something that fits in every division, okay? So if you are not at the right spot, this can actually be a time where you need to look at taking some time off of competing, okay? You might need to actually do an off season, an improvement season, depending on how hardcore that feedback actually is, because you can't really build muscle while you're on a prep, okay? When you're on a prep, you're basically on a dieting phase, right? We're leaning out, dieting down. Building muscle actually requires the opposite. It requires a surplus, and it takes time. It's not easy to build muscle. You can't just do it overnight, a week, 2 weeks even. You need some actual months down the road where you can sit there and you can raise your calories and you can build muscle and train really hard and then come back. So if a judge is telling you, hey, you need more muscle, you're just not in the right spot at all, you're probably best off to not try to do another show right then, actually just take that feedback and move yourself into an improvement season, build the muscle, and then you'll be able to come back better. So that is definitely one type of feedback and one thing you want to think about regarding your training. Another type of feedback that is going to be pretty common is going to actually be the conditioning. All right, so making sure you're at the right body fat percentage for your criteria. You're showing the right lines, the right cuts. Depending on division, everything's different. You got to fit that criteria though. And so when it comes to conditioning, a lot of times what you'll hear is one of two things. You're either going to hear too soft, you need to tighten up a little bit, or you're actually too hard and you need to actually put on a little more body fat. And depending on the division, this happens a lot for bikini and a lot of the other women's divisions, but also into the men's divisions. You have to fit the right level of conditioning, and if you're too hard, too soft, it can drastically change where you're going to actually place. So feedback for conditioning, honestly, is my preferred feedback to get as a coach because it's such an easy thing to adjust, okay? So let's say that I bring an athlete to comp, we didn't place the way we wanted. It happens all the time in the sport of bodybuilding. If anybody tells you it doesn't, they're lying to you. It happens all the time, different placings, different shows, all very different. And I want to get conditioning feedback if that happens, because that means, okay, I can easily adjust now. Maybe you came in too lean. All right, we had a little bit more calories. 2 weeks, you're ready to go. Oh, you need to actually be a little bit leaner, a little tighter. Big deal. We'll diet a little more, add another cardio, and in 2-3 weeks, we're going to be ready to go. You're actually able to much more quickly, in other words, get on stage, but versus the actual muscle building, the other type of feedback we talked about, where we're literally talking about months, sometimes years down the road before another competition because of the building that needs to be done. Conditioning feedback is, in my opinion, the best feedback for a competitor to get because it's very easy to make an adjustment and come back either leaner or softer, whatever they want to see. And that is going to be something you could actually do very, very quickly, a couple weeks, a month maybe, and you're back on stage and you can drastically change your placing, pretty much in just a span of a few weeks. You could not do well at a show, come back and win another one if it's conditioning type feedback.
1, 2, 3.
And now the third most common type of feedback you're going to get from the judges will actually regard your posing and your presentation. Now, your posing and your presentation, again, different for every division. Got to fit the criteria. Some get more individualized routines up to a minute. Some do, just 10, 15 seconds of their individuals. And basically, every posing routine is going to be different. The goal of your posing should be to hide your weak points and accentuate your strong points. That's always what you should be doing when you're posing. Show your judges the best angles you got and hide any of them that are not, and that's how you're going to actually, be able to place better and pose better and fit the criteria better overall. But when we're talking about posing, that's one thing. Presentation is almost a separate object, right? Because presentation really has to do with how you own yourself on stage, how you come out, the different stuff regarding, for women, it's their suit, it's their hair, their makeup, earrings, all these little details that come into the presentation, and of course, stage presence. For all divisions, all of them are really going to need to focus on that stage presence. And so when you come out on stage, that's a separate object in the same time, and sometimes you will actually get feedback regarding posing and presentation. And usually this is my second favorite type of feedback to get, obviously, because it's a very easy fix again. If we get an athlete on stage and the feedback is, yeah, improve their posing, put them back on here, do this, change the back pose a little bit, try this, that makeup just didn't work, to maybe a different, all these different things. Okay, cool, boom, we can do that in a matter of days, weeks, whatever. We can work on posing, we can adjust, we can bring them back to stage very quickly. So as a coach and as anyone watching this that's a competitor, in my opinion, your goal should always be to prioritize your muscle on prep, all right? Prioritize your muscle, because if you have to take time off to actually build muscle, it's going to be a lot more time and a lot more, dedicated training, and sometimes it can take months, 6, 12, 18 months before you can have built enough to go back to stage. The amount of competitors that diet too hard because they're so worried about the conditioning, right, being lean enough, and then they burn off all the muscle they've taken years to build, that puts you in a bad spot eventually, right? Because like I said, we can go through tiers of the Npc and the Ifbb, from true novice to open to nationals to pro cards and beyond. And basically, with each one of these, it becomes a different level of physique, right? True novice is obviously going to be the very, very beginning. So true novice means it's truly your first show. Novice category can be, a little bit, you could have done a few shows and you could be there, so you might have more experience. Obviously, moving into open, same thing. You're trying to get qualified for nationals at that point. You're more advanced. Nationals, you're competing against the top of the Npc organization, right? And so with this, you got to understand the criteria is the same, but the athletes get better. The athletes get better at every step. And so if you burnt your muscle off in your first prep and, you were a novice and then great, you won, whatever, you still won, even though you didn't have the right amount of muscle. It might not be the right amount of muscle for the next category you do, the open, you know what I mean? So you really got to think about the levels, the layers, almost like an onion of the Npc and the Ifbb. And if you're going to be able to fit each criteria, each part of your journey as you go. And so I always say prioritize your muscle, okay? Because it's the hardest thing to build, hardest thing to maintain. And if you lose it, it's going to take a long time to get it back. It really, really will. It's something you really want to avoid doing. So if anything, get conditioning feedback. If anything, as a competitor, come in a little too hard, a little too soft, and have the judges tell you you need to change that a little bit, but don't burn your muscle, because even if you don't place the way you wanted because of conditioning, easy fix, right? Or get posing feedback, right? Ideally, obviously, we're talking about you come into the show ready. You're not going to have a hard time with any of this, but you really should think that athletes, no matter what level, need to get feedback, okay? Even if you win the damn show. If I have a competitor I put in a show and they win the whole thing, they get the overall, whatever, I'm staying to get the feedback, because we have next shows, we have further goals, we're trying for pro cards, we're going to pro shows, trying to get Olympia points, whatever it is. I am always getting the feedback. I don't care if you won, you lost, whatever. I don't care what placing you got. You need to be getting the feedback, and that's exactly how you get to become better as a competitor. You get to move forward and you get to go further. It's feedback, feedback, feedback. And remember what I said in the beginning, from the judges. I will obviously give feedback to my athletes and tell them what I think based on what I know and what I think fits the criteria, but it's never going to replace what the judges say. And although 99.9% of the time I align exactly with what the judges were thinking regarding feedback, I'm never going to go out there and say that I know what they're, looking at, they're doing. I can't tell you guys that. That is what they do. They've done it for years, The judges that are in this organization, the NPC and the IFBB, are the best judges in the sport of bodybuilding since the dawn of the sport of bodybuilding, and they know the criteria is better than anyone, and this is what they do day in, day out, okay? So, always get your feedback from the judges and then work with your coach to adapt the plan. If you have a coach that's stuck in their ways and they say, you know what, that's wrong, I don't agree, we're not going to do that, that's not true, blah, blah, well, you might really consider looking for a different coach at that point, because your coach's feedback, your friend's feedback, your mom, dad's feedback, everybody gets biased in their head and they don't look at it in the right light. And when that happens, you're going to be at a detriment as a competitor. You're going to keep coming back to shows not in the good spot. You're going to waste tons and tons of money, tons and tons of time, a lot of bites of chicken breast trying to actually attain something that you're not on the right path for. So really what you got to do is make sure that you got a coach that works with you and the judges to perfect your physique for the criteria and your goals. Let's not forget this. Some people, as competitors, they want to go to shows, they just want to compete, right? That happens a lot for true novice and novice. They're not necessarily trying to win the overall at their very first show. But as you advance and you go further, everybody's goals change. There's competitors out there right now that are trying to get to the Olympia, and there's some that are trying to get to their first prep. So you got to know your goals. You got to know what to push, where to pull it, what to do training, what to do nutrition, how do you maintain muscle, how do you get the right level of conditioning, and how do you perfect your posing and your presentation. That's really what it comes down to be your best competitor and get yourself into the first call out, all right? So those are hopefully some ideas. I gave you some tips that you can actually utilize. Don't burn your muscle. If anything, get feedback on conditioning and posing so you can adjust and get back to stage quickly. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a lot more time, building and doing all that. And eventually, honestly, if you keep burning muscle off your body for prep, you just won't be able to compete anymore. It just gets too taxing on your body, too hard, and your body just will stop responding if you do things in an unsustainable, unhealthy way, all right? So hopefully you got something out of this, fam. If you need any help, you got any questions, you want to, some advice on your training, your nutrition, whatever, go to my website right now, TeamFFLEX.com. There's a free coaching trial we offer you where we take you on for 7 days, just like you're a real, actual client athlete we have, all right? The only people that get access to our coaching in our app with me and my coaches are people we actually train or people on the free trial. So you got an opportunity to try this out for free, no obligation to do anything, no cards, no money, nothing. We just want to help you out. We want to give back. We want to support you on your competing journey. So if you go to my website right now, TeamFFLEX.com, put your email in that pop-up. It's an instant invitation to our free trial. Me or one of my coaches will set you up. We'll help you out with whatever you want, wherever you are, whatever goal you got, we'll take care of it, all right? Thank you for watching First Callouts. I'm Ryan Milton from Team Flex. Do me a favor, subscribe to this channel, share out this video for yourself, your competing friends, everybody out there. Thanks for watching. Coach Rye is out.